You won't believe what this dog did seconds before takeoff until you hear the full story. At 6:10 a.m., inside a fog-draped terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, 53-year-old Officer Raymond Brooks adjusted his K9 partner's harness with a tension only veterans know too well. His partner, Titan, a stoic German Shepherd with 9 years of service, froze mid-stride near gate C-27. His ears twitched. His breath quickened. Something was wrong. And Raymond, a man who'd lost friends to hesitation overseas, knew better than to ignore it. While airline staff urged him to clear the way, Titan refused to move. What happened next exposed a terrifying breach, and you won't believe who tried to stop him. Stick around, because in just seconds, you'll see how airport protocol nearly allowed disaster. Before we dive deeper, drop a like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your story. The moment Titan refused to budge, everything shifted. You see, in airport security, hesitation is a risk, but instinct? That can save lives. Officer Brooks had seen it in combat before. A subtle flicker in a soldier's eyes before chaos erupted. And now, that same tension rippled through Titan's muscular frame. The German Shepherd stood statue still, eyes locked on the cockpit of Flight 297, just minutes from boarding. A gate agent waved frantically. "We're under a tight departure window. If this flight doesn't push back in 10 minutes, we're grounded till noon." Brooks didn't flinch. "Titan's onto something," he said, voice low but firm. That's when the friction began. The flight captain, a seasoned pilot named Dana Whitaker, emerged from the jetway with a furrowed brow and clipped tone. "I've flown this route for 20 years. We've already cleared security twice. This isn't the time for games." But for Brooks, it wasn't a game. It was survival. Titan had only ever reacted like this twice before. Once outside a military convoy in Kandahar, and once during a bomb drill in Houston. Both times lives were saved. And now, the Shepherd's body quivered, ears erect, eyes narrowing on a panel near the front cabin. Something behind it didn't sit right. Brooks felt the pull in his gut, the silence before a storm. He turned to the captain and said quietly, "If we ignore this, we may not get a second chance." And that's when all hell nearly broke loose. What they found behind that panel. It wasn't just unexpected, it was impossible. With a quiet command, Officer Brooks knelt beside Titan, flashlight in hand. The screws on the access panel turned far too easily. "This thing's been opened," he muttered. Maintenance logs hadn't mentioned anything, yet the edges bore tool marks, fresh ones. Still skeptical, Captain Whitaker folded his arms. "You're chasing shadows, officer." But Titan wasn't chasing anything. He was locked in, staring at that panel like it held the secret to every bad thing about to unfold. Brooks gave one final twist, removed the panel, and immediately stepped back. The compartment was deeper than expected, too deep. Wires, breakers, and bundled circuits masked the rear wall, but something didn't sit right. The light beam caught it. A different shade of steel, slightly newer, poorly matched. Then Titan growled. Not a loud bark, but a low, guttural vibration from deep in his chest. Brooks had heard it before, right before an IED was discovered under a Humvee. He leaned closer. "There's something behind the wiring." At that exact moment, the back panel shifted. Not electronically, not hydraulically, manually. And then it happened. A figure moved inside the darkness. A man, curled up like a spider in its web, sweat glistening, arm twitching toward his waistband. "Federal officer, don't move," Brooks shouted, drawing his weapon. But the man didn't freeze. He lunged, and Titan? He exploded into motion like a bullet off leash. You never forget the sound of a trained dog slamming into a human threat. It's not just muscle, it's purpose. Titan struck like a rocket, jaws locking onto the intruder's arm before the man could reach the compact pistol tucked into his waistband. The scream that followed wasn't just pain, it was panic. This wasn't supposed to happen. He'd trained, rehearsed, planned, but what he didn't account for was the dog. "Weapon," Brooks yelled, keeping his sidearm steady while closing in. The suspect, wiry and trembling, fought to twist free, but Titan held firm. No blood, no overreaction, just perfect technique, immobilizing the arm without permanent damage. That's years of discipline, right there. Captain Whitaker stood frozen in the cockpit doorway, her face as pale as the clouds outside. "Who is this?" she breathed. "Name's Pavel Drasek," came a voice from the jetway. Deputy Marshal Klein, now sprinting toward the scene. "Eastern European, known associate of Victor Kelm. This guy's been on a Homeland Security watch list for 2 years." Brooks kept his eyes locked on the man. How the hell did he get in? As backup secured the suspect, Titan finally released his grip on command, backing away with precision. Still alert, still ready. Whitaker whispered, "If that dog hadn't been on this flight." Brooks nodded. He was never just along for the ride. And for the first time in over a decade, he felt it again. That cold sweat of almost losing everything. You think the worst is over once the threat is in cuffs, but that's when the real fear begins. Back in the command center, tucked behind reinforced doors near Gate C, Officer Brooks stood over a table littered with maintenance schematics, flight manifests, and timestamps. Pavel Drasek was no ordinary infiltrator. As federal agents began combing through surveillance footage, a chilling pattern emerged. He hadn't just slipped in. He had help. Clear as day, the cameras showed him entering through a restricted hangar door 2 nights prior, dressed in a legit-looking maintenance uniform. Badge scanned. No alarms, no suspicion. Someone on the inside had cleared his access. Someone trusted. Marshal Klein paced behind Brooks, voice taut. That flight manifest was sealed. Only 5 people had access. If Drasek knew Collins was boarding that plane, we've got a leak, and it's high up. Brooks didn't answer right away. He was staring at the thermal insulation found in the crawl space. Custom cut, noise dampening, body heat masking. This guy wasn't just hiding, he said quietly. He was hunting. Targeting a witness? Klein asked. Brooks shook his head. Targeting a cockpit. If Titan hadn't caught him before takeoff, the room fell silent. The implications were unbearable. Not just the death of Collins, but the potential loss of everyone on board. A hijacking, maybe even a crash. And it had almost happened right under their noses. Then came the worst part. A call came in from Internal Affairs. One of the 5 people with access to Collins' transport plan was missing. Unreachable. Vanished. Someone wasn't just leaking info. Someone was working with them. Ever been the only one in the room who knows something's wrong? And no one believes you? That was Officer Brooks. Hours earlier, standing in that cockpit with a storm rolling in and a crew begging him to stand down. Every protocol, every ticking second, every raised eyebrow told him to let it go, but he didn't. Why? Because his partner, Titan, was speaking to him in the only language he knew: stillness, tension, instinct. And in that moment, Brooks made the call that changed everything. Now, as Homeland Security briefed the FBI on the breach, one truth rang louder than the rest. If Brooks had bowed to pressure, If he'd doubted Titan for even a second, they wouldn't be piecing together a plot. They'd be recovering bodies from wreckage. The missing staff member, now confirmed as part of a smuggling ring linked to international mercenaries, had likely fed Drosek the exact time, location, and seating arrangement of the flight. His goal? Eliminate Collins mid-air, then force the plane down in a chaotic crash, disguising the assassination as a tragic accident. Brooks stood at the window, watching Titan rest, ears still perked, eyes half open, as if ready for round two. He whispered more to himself than anyone. "You saved them all, boy, even the ones who didn't believe in you. You never truly grasp the weight of what didn't happen, until you're standing in the aftermath of what almost did." Hours after the takedown, as the sun dipped behind the Dallas skyline, Officer Brooks sat beside Titan in their quiet K-9 unit office. The chaos had passed, the cameras packed away, but the tension still lingered like a storm cloud refusing to leave. Brooks gently removed Titan's vest, signaling the end of duty. The change in the dog was instant. His shoulders relaxed, tail wagging slightly as he curled onto his mat. Brooks reached into his pocket, pulled out Titan's reward, a rugged red rubber chew toy worn from years of missions, but always earned. "You earned it today, partner," he whispered, voice catching in his throat. Across the room, Captain Whitaker appeared, this time with no clipboard, no scowl, just quiet awe. 23 years in the air," she said, "and I never once thought a dog would save my plane." Brooks gave a half smile. "They don't always wear capes." In the stillness, something settled over them, not just relief, but respect. Titan wasn't a tool. He wasn't just protocol. He was a living, breathing part of the team. And when the alarms were silent and the instincts kicked in, he was the one who saw what no one else did. This story reminds us that true wisdom often comes not from what is seen, but from what is felt, from intuition, loyalty, and the quiet voice that urges us to pause when everything says go. Officer Brooks' decision to trust his partner, even in the face of doubt and pressure, reveals a powerful lesson. Doing the right thing often means standing alone. In life, as in crisis, we're called to listen closely, to our instincts, to those we trust, and to the still moments where clarity lives. Sometimes the smallest signals carry the greatest truth, and courage is often quiet.